Hey guys, we are live. We're gonna do this live today on breeding. I'm sitting out here. I've got a female that's right now in the middle of whelping. So I said, you know what? This would be a good time to talk about breeding, the realities of breeding dogs, because I don't think a lot of people maybe really know. So I want to take this opportunity to maybe educate some folks. This was an impromptu live, as mine usually are, so there was no pre-warning of this live. So we'll give people a chance to jump on here, and then we'll get started. We'll talk about breeding, and we'll talk about whelping puppies. We'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because a lot of people think it's just all cute puppies, and that's just unfortunately not all there is to it. Hey guys, hey, I see everybody jumping on here. I'll just let you guys jump on, and we'll get after it. Need my lighter. Where's my torch? Where is my torch? Can never find it when I need it. There she is. Nope, that's a cutter. That is not a torch. Literally just had the thing on me. Unbelievable. Might have to light this in the fire. I'm gonna get a face full of smoke. Here, give me a second, guys. I'll wait for some more of you to jump on, and then we'll actually get started with the topic. I know my torch was here somewhere. All right, I'm not gonna get my cigar lit just yet, because unfortunately I think I left my torch in the house. So I'm gonna leave you guys with a nice view of the fire, and I'm gonna take a second to grab my torch, and maybe I'll actually take you in, and we'll take a look at that female that's in the middle of giving birth. It depends. We'll see. So just give me a second here. There we go. Okay, that wasn't a bad view, was it? Okay, let me get this lit up and we'll talk breeding. Okay, let's talk breeding, guys. So, obviously, as you guys know, I breed working dogs. I breed working German Shepherds, primarily. Sometimes I do herder breedings. I've done other types of breedings in the past, but right now that's pretty much exclusively what I'm focusing on. And, you know, a lot of people think you just put two dogs together and that's all there is to it. And I'm here to tell you there's a lot more to it than that. So, number one, you have got to match the dogs properly. This is going to go without saying. Every female and every male that we're going to consider has the necessary health testing done. That means we've got hips and elbows done. We've got a DM test done. Generally, we're also checking the spine of the dog, you know, just to make sure that there's no abnormalities in the spine. You know, generally we want to see a healthy dog. The next thing is the working quality of the dog must be there. The dog must have drive for work. The dog must have the character for work. The dog can't be a coward. The dog can't, you know, be excessively unstable. Again, that can be subjective depending on how you define the term unstable, because a lot of working dogs are what I like to call functionally unstable. Their instability makes them difficult maybe as pets, but also really lends them to being fantastic working dogs. But that's neither here nor there. So that's the bare minimum. Now let's talk about how you match the dogs, right? How you match the dogs is really, really important, because you cannot just say, oh, this is a nice dog and that's a nice dog, and put them together. First thing you have to do is look at the pedigree, okay? And then you have to see, do they have complementary traits, right? Is this dog bringing something that the other dog doesn't have, or that the other dog needs to improve? Or are these too much of the same type of dog? Like, so for instance, if I have a dog that's more on the, let's say, reactive side, the dog's like really antisocial, which isn't necessarily wrong for a working German Shepherd. So I'll give you guys an example. My dog, Gage, my dog Onyx, right? Both those dogs were more on the very antisocial side. They were strong. They're strong dogs. They have drive, but they're not social dogs, right? They carry some nerve, which makes them more antisocial. I will want to breed them to more stable social females. If I breed them to other antisocial dogs, I'm doubling up on that antisocial behavior, and I could end up with a litter that carries too much nerve, right? Too much nerve, and then now you're getting like fear-aggressive behavior, so on and so forth in the puppies, and you really want to avoid that. If I have a dog that's really stable, really calm, really comfortable kind of dog, like the kind of dog that could be a working dog or be a pet, that's the kind of dog now that I'm going to be wanting to breed towards another dog that maybe has thinner thresholds, that's a little bit more on the reactive side, that maybe carries a little bit of nerve, right? Because if I breed that kind of more calm, stable, high threshold dog to another calm, stable, high threshold dog, I'm basically going to have a bunch of sleepy pets, right? So it's one of those things where everything has to make sense for the desired outcome. If you go too far in one direction, you know, you're going to have puppies that aren't any good. And if they're not any good, you're going to get them back, or the owners are going to struggle with them. And if you care about your breeding program, obviously you want to produce the best dogs you possibly can. So that's number one. And keep in mind, these are all educated guesses. You might think two dogs are going to go really well together. You do the breeding and you're like, oh my Lord, have mercy. They do not go together at all. These puppies are horrific. These are terrible puppies, right? This is not a good combination. We must never repeat this ever again. There are also dogs that no matter who you breed them to will always produce terribly. And they might be in and of themselves fantastic dogs. I've seen it many times where you'll have a stud who's maybe a very high quality dog, like a very strong male, but he just does not pass that quality to his puppies. And it doesn't matter who you breed them to and what you breed them to, you're just constantly getting low quality puppies out of that breeding, right? Whether it's health issues, whether it's character issues, drive issues, so on and so forth. Putting the dogs together, right, is an educated guess at best. Even repeat breedings. So let's say you bred another the same litter, the exact same litter. Obviously, you're taking more of the guesswork out when you repeat a breeding, but a repeat breeding, still, the second litter can be very different from the first litter, believe it or not, right? So there's a lot of variability involved in the breeding game, and you have to be very aware of that, especially if you're breeding for quality, right? If you're breeding for character quality. When we're breeding working dogs, it's the most difficult form of breeding, because we're not just breeding the outside of the dog, right? Like if you're just breeding dogs for looks, it doesn't matter. That's very, very easy to do. And you can have enormous progress in your breeding program if your goal is just a specific look or looks. Oh, and I just got news from Chandra that a first tie was done. Fantastic. 30-minute tie. Fantastic. We'll talk about that in a second. So, where was I? Yes. So when you're breeding dogs for looks, it's very fast, right? Like, oh, I want my dogs to be more fluffy. I want my dogs to carry a little more pigmentation. I want my dogs to be bigger. That is fast. It takes a few generations and you can get where you want to go really quickly. But when you're breeding them for what's inside, right? When you're breeding them, they have to have that combination of courage, of intelligence, of stability, of drive, of determination. When you're breeding them for all of these internal characteristics, That is much more tricky, which is why the breeding of the working dog is the most complicated form of breeding, and I think the most meaningful and impactful form of breeding that there is, right? And it's why we have dogs that, we say, oh, like these types of dogs are like this, and those types of dogs are like that, instead of, oh, that's a big fluffy dog. But it's a lot more complicated, and I think it's the most meaningful and impactful form of breeding that there is. But it's very difficult because a lot of the time you're making educated guesses based on the dogs in front of you and the pedigree, and you're going from there, right? So that's number one. Now, let's talk about the actual breeding, okay? Because people get that twisted. They think, oh, okay, you just put the dogs together and they hump, and you got a pregnant bitch. No, okay? So the female will go into heat. You have approximately, 2 weeks, give or take a few days, of a heat, right? The female goes into heat roughly twice a year. Some females are a little more regular, some females are a little less regular, okay? When the female goes into heat, it's not just like she's good to be bred for the entire 2 weeks. You've got about maybe a 3 to 4 day ovulation window in that heat in which she can actually get pregnant. Okay. So if you're using an outside stud, this can be somewhat complicated because now you need to time it right. You need to bring her in the right time to that stud, right? If you have a stud that you have at home, no problem. You can usually the stud and the female will kind of tell you when she starts standing and flagging for him, when he becomes very determined to breed her, you'll be like, okay, they're in the right time. Typically dogs won't, not always, sometimes they will, but generally they won't tie, they won't lock if it's not the right time for a breeding, okay? But here's now you're using an outside stud. Things can get complicated. You can do progesterone to try and figure out where that window is exactly of the female. Now it starts to get pricey. You're running the bitch to the vet every other day to do the progesterone to try and time it exactly right so that you can show up at the stud dog's house just in time to make that breeding, right? So there's a lot that goes into this. A lot of money is spent before even, a puppy is on the ground. And this is the thing that people don't understand, right? Now, let's say that you've got it all timed, whether you have a stud at home or whether you have a stud, an external stud. And most people, by the way, in working dogs, they tend not to use an in-home stud because most people have a very small breeding program with just like maybe one or two, like 2 or 3 females maximum. And keeping a stud like a stud dog is a very rare dog, right? It's not just like any dog. Like, oh, it's a male, I'm going to breed him. No, not if you're a good breeder. A stud dog is semen is cheap. We'll put it that way, right? But good studs are rare, right? This is a dog that is the epitome of the breed. This is a dog that is on the extreme end of the spectrum. I've spoken about what a stud dog is before, but this is a dog that isn't just like an average dog. He has a fantastic pedigree. He has fantastic drive behavior. He has a strong character. He is not weak. He is not nervous, right? He is courageous. He's preferably more on the extreme end, like not the type of dog like maybe an average person can handle because he's a stud. He is rare. He is the creme de la creme, okay? So this is the type of dog now that usually most people don't own them. They have to go to someone that does own that type of dog and make that breeding, okay? So it's one of those things where, again, we're talking about like these are barriers to actually producing good puppies that people don't consider. Okay, so you've got the timing right. Now you bring the bitch for the breeding, okay? Now, a lot of people think that you just hump and there's puppies. No, that doesn't work like that. First of all, you have to generally hold the female for the male to breed because if the female does not know the male, oftentimes she can get a little bit nasty. She can get a little squirrely with the male. The male can get a little squirrely with her, and you could have a dog that's injured very quickly. So you hold the female for the male, okay? That can often be a little bit maybe not on the easiest side. The breeding occurs. They get locked together. Dogs they're not like humans where they just kind of hump and dogs actually get stuck together. I know a lot of people don't know this. When they hump, they're not actually breeding, right? The breeding happens when the male gets inside the female and then his member basically expands and he gets stuck inside of her, right? So there's no actual, humping going on when the actual breeding is occurring. The humping is the precursor to the breeding, but it's not the breeding in and of itself, right? So they get stuck together you're talking like maybe like 20, 30 minutes. Ideally, with a female, you want to do a minimum of 2 locks. So that means after one 15, 20-minute lock, you'll separate them for about 24 hours. Then you'll do another one. Ideally, you do like 3 locks. Okay. Then after that, okay, you got your 3 locks. Now it's time to cross your fingers and pray. You hope the breeding took. Just because you got your locks in doesn't mean the breeding took. Doesn't mean the female's actually carrying, right? So, at around, the 4 to 6 week mark, you're going to do your x-rays, your ultrasounds, or you're just going to wait to see. I'm a wait to see kind of guy. I don't generally like running a female to an x-ray or ultrasound unless she's not showing and I'm really like, I don't think she's pregnant. Generally speaking, I'll wait to see, right? And usually you'll see it in the stomach, like in the body of the female if she's carrying. Okay, she's carrying, fantastic. Now you get to the whelping, which is happening right now over there. I said to you guys, I'll take you over there in a little bit, and I will. So now she's whelping. All right, great. So now the puppies are coming out. Now, here's the thing. There's no guarantee, number one, that the puppies are all going to be born alive. In fact, it's not uncommon that one or two, unfortunately, sometimes don't make it. They're born stillborn, or they die very, very quickly after birth, right? Then the first few days, you might still lose more puppies. It's quite possible. You'll see puppies with fading puppy syndrome, right? Where there's no reason, like you're making sure that they're getting the correct nutrition, they're being fed, they're getting everything that they need, and yet they still just unfortunately fade away, right? Some females are very difficult with the puppies. Some females don't like to lie for the puppies and feed the puppies. Some females actually can become aggressive with the puppies and kill the puppies. Some females can accidentally, step on the puppies and injure them or kill them. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in the whelping process. And it's, again, not uncommon, especially when we're dealing with working dogs. With working dogs, these are dogs that are more intense. This isn't your average like golden retriever. This is a dog that's very, very intense, and they tend to react in very, very intense ways when emotions are high. So there's a lot of thing, right, that can go south even within the first like week. So just because you see a female now, she's lying on, let's say we go in there and she's lying on 7 puppies, right? And assuming she's done giving birth, doesn't mean that there's going to be 7 puppies at the end of this whole thing. It means maybe there's 5, maybe there's 6, maybe there is 7, right? You can lose a couple of puppies along the way, unfortunately. And when they're very small, when they're in that like little wormy stage, which you guys are going to see shortly, they're very, very susceptible to any kind of problem, occurring. So very, very important to be aware of this, right? So there is a lot of things that can go wrong in the whelping process. Now, usually once the puppies are like 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks old, you're in the safe zone, okay? Unless something really goes wrong, some disease comes in or something, generally speaking, you're going to get those puppies, all the way to the end of the road, and they're going to be ready to go to their new homes, which is fantastic. But as you guys can see in that buildup that I described, breeding dogs is not as simple as putting 2 dogs together, right? Now, I know there's people that do it they have 2 dogs and they put them together in their backyard and they produce puppies, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that is very purposeful, something that, is meaningful, like you're actually trying to accomplish something, not just reproduce, right? And when you're actually trying to accomplish something, you suddenly find out it's a lot more complicated than the average person thinks it is, right? And that's reality. So, I just wanted people to be aware, when you see like puppies or when you see like a portion of this, what always bothers me too is like when we post like a working dog breeding or we post puppies, there's always some retard rescue person that jumps on, oh, we have enough dogs. No, we don't. We don't have enough good dogs. We have a lot of like low quality dogs. We have a lot of like, the product of random mistakes or the product of carelessness or the product of, bad intentions. We have a lot of those. But how many actual dogs do we have that are the product of hundreds of years of planned and careful breeding designed to actually produce a very specific outcome in terms of behavior and temperament? And when you see those dogs, when you see dogs like Chico, when you see dogs like Gage, it's a beautiful thing to see because that is not just the product of me. That is not just the product of the breeder. That is the product of many, many people making very intentional moves and careful plans and putting in hours and hours and hours of dedication for multiple generations to get to the point where you see a beautiful dog like Chico, or you see a dog like Gage working his heart out at the international level, right? That's not an accident. That is the product of intention. And there's an extreme shortage of dogs of that type of caliber, of that type of character. And it is my intention to reproduce those dogs because they aren't easy to come by. And you're certainly not finding one in a shelter. Okay, guys. Let's see what we got here. Should we go over and look at that female? Let's go look at her. How do you find a good, healthy Doberman? It ain't easy. You know how many Dobermans I know die in like between ages 2 and 4? It's very, very common. Find a breeder whose dogs you like. And then the most important thing, ask how old the parents and the grandparents are. If the grandparents and the parents are no longer with us, avoid. Right? I'm looking for parents to be like in the 4 to 5 year old range and the grandparents to be in like the 7 to 8 year old range. Yes, definitely. Plan careful breeding, but you still play the odds. That's the thing. That's why it's called breeding, not, a factory reproduction or whatever it is, right? There's no guarantee. You breed, you can make all the right decisions, you can do everything by the book, and you could still end up with puppies that are of not the quality that you wanted, right? That's why good dogs are hard to find. Some of the best dogs I've ever had have come from $500 puppies from a backyard, totally by chance. Yeah, it's possible, but I mean, what's your definition of a good dog? You know, right? Like, there's a lot of people that like, like I was on Kijiji and I bought like this salvaged Honda Civic, and it was the best car I ever drove, and I drove it for 400,000 kilometers, and it was fantastic. Well, yeah, because obviously it was reliable for you. It worked out. You didn't care really like maybe how it looked. Your standard of, it was easy, it was reliable, didn't break down on me too much, and that's what I wanted out of a vehicle. Right now, you want performance. You want, something that's able to perform at a level like a vehicle, for instance. And again, we're using a car analogy, a vehicle that's able to perform at, a very high level. Well, there's only certain vehicles that are going to be able to fulfill that. And they're certainly not going to be $500 with a salvage title, right? Those are going to be very hard vehicles to come by, and you're going to pay for them. So it's the same with dogs, if you want just like, a random dog and take your chances, could you end up with a good dog? Sure, you certainly could. But if you want a dog that has, like, I have a lot of clients, they take these dogs and they're not even actually really going to do much with the dog, but they just like having something that has that capability, that has that history behind it, because they find that enjoyable. They like to own a piece of that genetic art, so to speak. And it's a beautiful thing. And I definitely understand why they might want to have that, even if they don't really necessarily want to do all the things that that dog might be capable of doing. Killer Cal says, hard, courageous, quick twitch, no backup, decent bones, same as the ones you would consider a good dog. I doubt it, because I've seen dogs like Kijiji dogs or Craigslist dogs where I've been like, oh, that's good for a Craigslist dog. For me, it's still not good enough, but I'm like, oh, it's all right. It's a good dog, for where it came from. My definition of a good dog, though, is extremely specific, and the chances of you finding that on a Craigslist ad, next to none. But I'm very picky. All right. Is a good dog bred, or can a good dog be made? No, they're bred. They're bred. But that being said, you can get a dog that has fantastic genetics, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can fuck it all up, and that dog can be a pain in the ass to live with and no good to anybody, right? Because you're just not able to, get that dog where it needs to get. You're not able to refine, what that dog brings to the table genetically and guide it in a productive direction. And so the dog is acting out, and, the dog is basically, self-determining what it's going to do with those genetic instincts, and it's making it an absolute living hell, right? So, to answer your question, no, if you bring me like some nervous wreck of a dog, am I going to be able to turn that into a super strong, confident, outgoing dog, that, is providing that type of work ethic and character that a superior dog will be able to provide? No, of course not, right? It's always going to be inhibited and limited to that level. But at the end of the day, it's really, really important to understand that the right work needs to go in, right? You start with a good dog and then you put the right work in, otherwise it's not going to be a good dog. All right, guys, let's go look at that female. Let's go see what she's doing. She's giving birth, so I want to see how many puppies she has. Bear with me. The internet might get a little spotty as I move. Let me know if you lose me. Ooh, it's dark. All right. I hear puppies. Let's see here. Hey, girly. How you doing? You want to show the people what you got there? Let's see. I'm not going to mess with them. We got 1, 2, 3. I know. Let me see how many. 1, 2, 3. Thought there was 4. Where's your puppies? Are you missing some? You got one there. They all look black right now, and that's just because when they're born they do. This litter is going to be some blacks and some dark sables. So this right here is Swamp von der Sinberg, and she was bred to Yarrow vom Eisenkraus. So we're gonna have, he's a black male, so we're gonna have black puppies and sable puppies. So it looks like we're at 4 right now. I see one in the back there, Swampy. She's not gonna be too happy if I try and pick one up. She's gonna be they're real protective of the puppies earlier on. Let me see what you got. You got a puppy back here. Yes. Good girl. Here, let's bring that one over. Okay, all right, there you go. Tried to pick that one up. She was like, nope, that's mine. Yeah, hey. She just tried to bite me. Oh my goodness. Don't bite. Those are sharp. All right. Yeah, you know, female doesn't want me to touch her puppies. I can't blame her. Now, normally, if I really want to examine the puppies, like I don't want to disturb her too much because she's still giving birth. I will pull her out if I want to touch the puppies in the beginning, just until she calms down. They're always a little extra protective of the puppies as they're giving birth and for the first couple of days, aren't they? Aren't they? Yeah, and Swamp is not like a soft female. She will bite you. She's like a little bit more on the tough, aggressive side. Nice drive. She's a lot of female. She's a lot of female. She definitely has like that reactive side as well. So Yarrow's actually a very social, stable male. And here, hold on. No, I'll let you see them. Yarrow's a very social, stable male. So the last litter, we had a really nice puppies. Everybody liked the puppies. Nice drives and like nice social behavior. Some were obviously a little bit more like mom and some were a little more like social butterflies like dad. You got one over there. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. You can see that big old belly on her. There's another one under her tail over there. She'll corral that one over there later. I'm not going to pick it up right now because it's just going to bother her. She's an experienced female, so I trust her to like whelp like this. Other females, especially new females, you want to be right there helping them every step of the way. Of course, she's a working line German Shepherd, 100%. Look at you. You don't like people here, eh? I'm going to leave you alone and I'll come back and check on you in a couple of hours. Not a couple of hours, let's say an hour. So I promised you guys I would show you the puppies and the whelping female. We're at, well, let me double check. There. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure there's no puppies underneath. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I'm not touching your puppies. All right. Oh, so we're gonna leave her alone now. It's nice and warm in here. Get out of here. Always keep it warm when you're whelping because those puppies cannot regulate their temperature. Okay. Turn the light off. Hey, Tiger, why don't you stop giving me advice, okay? I'm sharing some stuff with you guys. I'm sharing some information with you guys. You might not know this, but this isn't my first time. I kind of know a little bit about what I'm doing. She has free access to water, and I don't need to justify my care for the dogs to some random person on the internet. Maybe do a little research and see whose channel you're on before you start offering unsolicited advice. Can you give her some water? She looks thirsty. All right, never occurred to me that a dog might need water. A dog needs water. Really? Are you sure? Should I maybe spray the water on her? What do you think I should do? What are you going to tell me next? They eat? Do they eat food? You think I should give her some food too? Man, I'm learning all sorts of new things today. I always love the unsolicited advice on the internet. You know, you'll be like walking your dog and he'll be panting because it's hot out, right? And dogs sweat by panting just as you're sweating. Be like, oh my God, he needs some water. Can you give him some water, please, for the love of God? It's like, you know that the dog can pant and not require water immediately. You do know that, right? You know when a female is giving birth, she's going to pant. You know when you're working a dog and you're training and the dog is doing something strenuous, they're going to pant and know they don't need water every 5 minutes and they're not going to die. I always laugh. It's like that reminds me. Yeah, you guys remember Free Willy? Those of you that are old enough to have like experienced that movie Free Willy. Remember Free Willy when they're like transporting him in the van and they have to like keep spraying him with water? Free Willy was a killer whale for those of you that didn't watch the movie. So like Free Willy's like this killer whale. They're like transporting him to the ocean and they're like spraying him with like this hose the entire time, right? Because like he needs like this water constantly. There's like so many people on the internet that seem to believe that like dogs are like that. Like they can't be thirsty for even 3 seconds. They can't pant. If they're panting, they're in distress. It's like, I know you've never seen a tired dog before. You've never seen a dog that's maybe doing something strenuous, and you've probably never done something strenuous, so you don't really understand that it's possible to do something and not require water every 3 seconds. But anyways. Am I planning to bottle feed the puppies? No, unless I absolutely have to. So I'll only bottle feed puppies. Like I had a bitch in my last litter. She refused the puppies. She refused the puppies. So luckily there was another female that was like I had one of my staff was actually whelping her, and she actually just happened to have a Jack Russell Terrier that had just whelped puppies like 2 weeks earlier. So she was still feeding those puppies. So there was only two, or I should say there was three puppies that were born, and the female refused to feed them. She was very aggressive towards them and was actually, I just couldn't trust her alone with those puppies. So we ended up fostering them with the Jack Russell Terrier. But needless to say, Jack Russell Terrier cannot produce enough milk, especially when the puppies start to get a little bit older. So we have to supplement those with formula. Of course, you weigh the puppies daily and you make sure that they're progressing as they should, age appropriately. If you notice that a puppy's maybe falling off or falling behind, you do your best to supplement. Unfortunately, with that litter I mentioned that we fostered with the Jack Russell, one of the puppies just was very well, like there was no problem. Like the puppy was well fed, the puppy was growing, and then just within 2 days just kind of fell off, and fading puppy syndrome, right? And it happens, unfortunately. But so there was two puppies left, and they're still actually being fostered by that Jack Russell Terrier, and they're being fed formula, and that's going to be their entire life up until they reach weaning. Let's see what we got here. Are you endorsing any particular formula brand? No, I just go to the pet store and we get whatever's there. It's always the same brand. I can't even remember what it's called. It's always the same brand. Anyways, it's interesting because this litter is a repeat litter, and I'm hoping it produces the same as the last one, because the last one was really good. So I'm hoping, and all the puppies were really pretty in the last litter. They were all dark. They were either black or dark sables. And they all had like nice behavior, nice drive behavior. Everybody that got one as a sport dog is doing dog sport with them, and they all look good. So I'm excited to see how this one goes. What's my favorite fragrance to wear? Right now, I'm wearing a fragrance of dog, cigar, and fire. So we'll see how the ladies respond to that one. Are all the puppies spoken for? Well, yeah, the puppies are all spoken for as of now. We'll see how many more come out. She's still got some in there, so we'll see how many more come out. What age do we stop breeding the dogs? Typically like 6, 7 years old, right? That might be Swamp's last breeding. She's 6 now, right? I know people have bred until they're like 8, but for me, typically like 6, maximum 7, depending on the female. And then you retire. We'll just retire them and find them like a nice home to go and live in. A lot of my females don't even live here. Like my females, some of my females are on co-owns. They live with other people. I actually prefer that. There are some females that are a little bit more on the difficult side, so they have to stay here, and you know, it's best like that. But when possible, I'll put my females on co-owns, and they'll live like with a family or whatever. They'll live with a handler, and I like that. I prefer that than keeping them in the kennel. Does size matter? I don't know. What do you mean? Like every breed has a size and a breed standard. I don't care so much about size. I care more about like, breeding strong dogs with good character. So that's what I care about. Gage is on the smaller side, for instance. Chico's on the larger side. I have breedings where the puppies are bigger. We have breedings where the puppies are a little bit on the smaller side. It totally depends on the individual breeding. My primary concern is always character. Always, always, always. Size is like one of my lowest considerations. Have I ever worked with Bucerons? How do I feel about the breed I'm seriously considering? I've seen them. They're whatever, kind of, like I've never seen a Buceron that I was like, oh, wow, like this is a fantastic working dog. If you just really like the look and the history of the breed and, that's something you want to get into and you don't really have any like serious designs on a working dog, I think it's fine. If you're like really after like a dog for performance, I don't think you're going to get what you want from going to that breed. So, yeah. How can you get on the wait list for a puppy? You can contact us at info@shieldcanine.ca, and you can get on the wait list. There's a lot of people already on the wait list, so just be aware of that. So I'm going to go check on her again in about an hour, see how she's doing, but she knows what she's doing, so I'm not going to bother her too much. That's not a car. That's a side-by-side. And it probably does need a tune-up. All right. Does anybody else have anything interesting for me? Any other suggestions? Do dogs have a crucial age for bonding? No. No, no, they don't. You can, I've gotten dogs at like 3, 4 years old in the past, and they love me in a couple of months, no problem. So there's not like a magical age for bonding. There's definitely an age that you want to imprint, like you want to get the dog out and expose it to a lot of things when they're young. I would say between 8 and 16 weeks is a really good age to get the puppy out and show them the world, show them as much as you can. Do I ever see myself competing in a different bike sport other than IGP? I would try PSA. Like I said, I've already coaching some people that are in that sport. I would try it. I'm certainly willing to try it. I should give her water, eh? Man, where would I be without the internet? If it's mom's first litter and she's not a good mom, can this have a bad effect on the puppies for the rest of their lives? I haven't seen it to be the case. I've seen moms that were like atrocious, and then the puppies are like fantastic, happy social animals. And I've seen moms that were very loving and caring, and the puppies are nervy nerve bags. So I have not seen the mother's care to actually have a big impact on like the ultimate temperament of the dogs. Giant Schnauzer or Rottweiler for sport. Have you seen these breeds excel? I've seen them do it. Haven't seen them excel. No. Thanks. Glad you like it. So, I hope I illuminated you guys. How's Bang? Bang's doing great. Waiting for her heat. I did a breeding recently. Well, we just did a breeding with Jack's dog. Those of you that follow me, you know Jack, my helper. He has a really nice dog. Ike DeLupus Savis. You guys can look him up on pedigree database. And I bred him to Taz, which is that female I had that's Chico's niece there. And she's really the nicest female I have. Nicest female I ever had. So I just bred her to Ike. So we're hoping that breeding takes, because Ike is a really, really strong dog. And she's a really, really strong female. So I'm almost scared to see what those puppies turn into. You're not sure how to socialize your working German Shepherd puppy. I would like him to be friendly sometimes. It's just not in their genes. Well, it depends on your dog. Some working line German Shepherds are extremely social and friendly, and some are not. And it really depends on the individual dog you have. All you got to do is just get them out and about, get them neutralized in public, and you will see what you've got. Who am I planning to breed to Bang? I'm planning to breed Yarrow to Bang. Am I going to breed Carson's dog? Man, so we did try to breed Carson's dog, and that he just kept trying to attack the females. Like he was so crazy. Like he just kept trying to attack the female, and like obviously he's in a muzzle, so he couldn't. But like that was all that was on his mind. And I've seen it before with like certain extreme males. Like Chico was like that in the beginning. Like it's like a bear attack, like they're just so extreme and intense, and they have like very one-track minds. So his dog, we're gonna have to have like maybe more of a slower approach with his dog. We will try to breed that dog again, probably, but he's gonna have to like live next to the female and heat for like a week, kind of get used to her and realize that there's more to life than just killing. So yeah, AI is an option, but I don't like it. I prefer live breeding. And usually, even with dogs like that, once they do it once they just experience it once and they like do a live breeding, they're like, oh, this is what you do with females in heat. And then that they become like just assassins when it comes to that. And they'll be locking a female up. And, a good stud locks a female immediately. He will take a female, even if she's a little bit unruly, and he will lock her immediately. Like Onyx, Gage's daddy, he was like that. Like, I don't care how nasty a female, I wouldn't even hold females for him. Even though typically I always hold a female, I would not hold the females for him. I just put him in with the female, and he would straighten her out in about 3 seconds. And it was something to see. It was so primal, like just how he would just straighten her out. He'd be like, "You're not doing anything to me. You're going to do exactly what I want." And he did it. And it was, studs like that are obviously ideal because they get it done, and they get it done fast. And they don't put up with any kind of crazy female antics. But there are some studs, they take a little bit more time. You've got to really hold the female for them, so on and so forth. So Bang and Yarrow is going to be pretty inside and out from what I remember of Yarrow. Well, the pedigree is certainly going to be pretty. The pedigree is going to be fire. When and how would I incorporate kids when doing the no nonsense dog training to preserve, maintain discipline and obedience, and have that safe comfort level around my kids, 3 to 6 years old? My kids don't train my dogs. I'm not one of those people that like, generally tell my like little kids, like try to get my little kids to like hold the leash and train the dog. They don't do that. What I taught my kids from the get go is, hey, when he's on his bed, leave him alone. Don't bother him. And when I tell them to steer clear of the dog, they'll steer clear of the dog. And we created this understanding with the dogs really quickly, is that the kids are not for them to like roughhouse with. They are to be careful around the kids, and I also expect the kids to be careful around the dogs. And then they have this mutually now. They have really nice relationship. My dog, Gage, has a fantastic relationship with my kids now, because I really enforced that, as they were both growing up together. The dog is like 4.5, and my oldest son is like 6, and my youngest son is 3.5. So like they all kind of grew up together, and I was very firm about that, right? So now he'll lie on the ground and they pet him and all this type of stuff. But like in the beginning, when he was young and a little bit more, let's say, temperamental, I was very firm with him about how he would treat them, and very firm with them about how they would treat him. And they kind of understood, and they did not harass him or bother him. And he learned that harassing and bothering them was never allowed either. And now they have a very mutually respectful relationship with one another, and they get along fantastically. But I don't try to make them train him or anything like that. Artificial intelligence for machine learning to map out. Yeah, that will be the future. In the future, I'm sure, you know, there'll be like a gene bank, and you'll be able to just like make test tube puppies basically, and pick the traits that you want. I know that they've experimented with cloning dogs. And from my understanding, the clones are never the same as the donor. They'll have a lot of the same behaviors and traits, but they're not like the same dog, which tells you that there's more to a dog than his genetics. There's something internal. There's the soul of the dog, the heart of the dog. And this can vary from dog to dog. You can have two dogs. You can have, I've seen it before, a dog that is genetically a fantastic dog, has good drive, has good, genetic talent in terms of grips, athleticism, structure, so on and so forth. But the dog lacks heart and character. And then you see a dog that doesn't maybe have all the same genetic talent, but it has the heart of a lion, and the character of one as well. And that's a beautiful thing to behold. So, um, you know, I don't know that I don't know how test tube puppies are going to impact that, but it'll be interesting to see. How is Snap doing? She's doing great. I was telling Jessica yesterday or the other day when I saw her with the dog, not yesterday, but the other day when I saw her with the dog, and the dog was just working like a clockwork, like just this, that, like dogs. She's such a nice dog for training, you know. Um, so I was just telling her, man, you've really done such a fantastic job with this dog. I'm very, very happy with her performance, and she's just such a willing dog. You know, whatever you want her to do, she's doing it, and it's amazing. You know, just seeing how fast she learns and how she's able to perform. She's a very nice dog. I don't have any IGP clubs in South Florida that like I'm not associated with any clubs. I went down there and I trained with a number of people. I know there's like the Treasure Coast Club down there. There's the Fort Lauderdale Club, and then there was also a training group with a famous French ring guy, but he also does IGP, and he did IGP actually at the world level too. Um, and I'm trying to remember his full name. Ludovic Trebain. Ludovic. I'm trying to remember his company name. I can't remember off the top of my head, but Ludovic Trebain, and he has a nice training group as well. Do I consider Australian cattle dogs to be good working dogs? For Australian cattle dog type stuff, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I don't know anything about putting boots on puppies. I don't do that. uh, well, dogs certainly have souls, and they have very different souls. Dogs are like people, you know. People like to always uh, make dogs out to be like, you know, mythical things. Dogs are very much like people in the way that there's good people and there's bad people. There's people that can kind of go either way. There's people that, you know, in the wrong environment, they will turn into absolute criminal psychopaths that are a complete danger to society. But in the right environment, they'll blossom into you know, a staunch protector and, you know, they will be a complete asset to their family and their society. And, you know, there's people that no matter what situation you put them into, they will always, you know, blossom and become something beautiful. And there's people that no matter what situation you put them into, they will always become something ugly. And dogs are the same, very much the same. You will see all types. Dogs that carry maliciousness, dogs that maybe even carry a little bit of evil in them, and then you will see dogs that no matter again what situation they're in, they have an inner beauty to them, and they're just very admirable creatures. So humans and dogs, they're not so different. Zach George still needs to accept the 50K challenge. Zach George will never accept the 50K challenge. I knew that when I made the challenge to him. I made the challenge to him to make a point. The point was this: you're talking all this nonsense, but at the end of the day, when it's time to perform, when someone is calling upon you to perform and prove what you say, and they're willing to even pay you a large sum of money to do it, you won't do it. And that in that moment, he basically exposed himself to anybody who's a reasonable, logical individual. And you know, I'm sure he still will have like these purple-haired extremists that continue to support him and parrot what he says. But those aren't the people that I would ever reach, anyways. Those are people that are lost, and you know, they will always be lost, and there's nothing you can do for them. I don't have breeders in the U.S. that I really deal with, so I'm sorry I cannot. We got anything else that's interesting in here? Let's see. Thoughts on Mike Deal? I'm getting a puppy from him soon. Well, I don't know him personally, but he certainly has an impressive resume. And he's done a lot in dog sport, and he's done a lot in the police canine world. So there's probably worse people to get a puppy from, that's for sure. How was the litter with Juice and Chico? Well, that was a long time ago. That was like a year ago. Um, the litter, well, we had 4 puppies, and none of them are coming here. So I don't like. I think a couple of no, 3 of them are in the U.S. Yeah, 3 of them are in the U.S. One of them came back, and I trained him and sold him locally to a vet. The one that came back was a little bit of an interesting dog. Like he had drive, but it wasn't like extreme drive. He was like the kind of dog that if you let him get away with stuff, he was a bit of a jerk. But like the second you said, "Hey, bro, none of this nonsense," and you straightened him out, he was like a very normal dog, and a lot of that crazy drive that you thought he had went away. Which brings us to the question: what is drive? Now that's a separate live, and I'm going to actually do some videos on this because drive is a very interesting topic, right? It's a genetic trait, but I think a lot of people mischaracterize what drive is, right? They'll be like, oh, this dog's super drivey. And really, the dog's just out of control, has zero inhibition, zero impulse control. The second you put impulse control and inhibition on the dog, a lot of that drive disappears. So, was it really there in the first place? And then you have dogs like Chico, right? Dogs like Gage, where the more you cap the drive and put impulse control on the dog, the stronger the drive becomes, right? Like power that like the more you contain the power, the more power there is, right? That for me is real drive. If I have a puppy that's like crazy, he wants to bite everything, and I say, hey, knock that shit off. You're not going to be biting me, and you're not going to be, just nailing whatever you want to nail, right? And he says, oh, okay, well, I have no more drive anymore, and I don't want to do anything. I say, well, then the drive was never there in the first place. You were just crazy and out of control, and you were just acting out impulsively and hectically, right? So this is something that I think a lot of people just don't understand. I've heard of Rick Scher. I don't know him, so I cannot speak to what the quality of his dogs, but I've heard of him. So I mean, good luck. I hope it's a good puppy. Armand Hammer says, if you drink alcohol, a good sipping bourbon would look like you're in heaven. Ha ha ha. I do not drink alcohol, unfortunately. Well, I don't know why I just said unfortunately. I do not drink alcohol, and I don't want to drink alcohol, but I certainly could appreciate that. Should I correct my dog for trying to take off on a structured walk in the park? He's e-collar trained, but will test his luck from time to time. Well, if he's running on you, you should certainly correct that behavior if you have taught him how not to run. Let's see here. Shannon Kennedy. $99 super chat? Jesus, Shannon. You're buying me dinner. Not bad. Well, thank you. You're not even going to ask a question? Let's see here. I'm getting a female protection dog, and this is my first. Once I get familiar with everything, I'm planning to get another. Do you think I should go with a male this time? Yeah, 100%. 100% get a male. That's in line with what I've heard you say before regarding you can breed two awesome dogs and not expect a litter full of dogs with the same temperament, etc. Exactly. My thing with Juice and Chico is with dogs that have extreme drive. The problem if you breed them together, in many cases, with dogs have extreme drive, sometimes it can cover like a nerve, right? They might be a little bit thinner in the nerves. So you have to always be a little bit careful. My preference is generally actually not extreme to extreme. My preference is more like extreme to good or extreme to stable. Otherwise, sometimes you can have too much of a good thing, and it actually kind of like cancels itself out. No, I can't really explain how to train a puppy to out. I do have a full out course online, shieldcanineonline.com. And it's not because I'm like trying to get you to buy the course. I really don't care if you do or you don't. It's because it's a process, right? It's not something that I can just tell you in a live, like, oh, do this and your dog will let go. Tiger Meg says, I'm wondering if dogs in Canada or other places with less petrochemical industry have less cancer. Sorry for getting emotional earlier. Your girl is beautiful and brought back memories. No problem. And I was just trolling you because that's what we do sometimes on the internet. Um, no, I don't know that to be the case. It's like the kibble raw debate, right? Like a lot of people say, like, oh, if your dog is like, I did that kibble versus raw video, and everyone's like, oh, kibble's garbage. Oh, how could you feed Royal Canin? It's terrible. Ah. And I'm like, listen, man, I've owned dogs for many years, and I've dealt with so many dogs over my years of being a dog trainer, dog breeder, so on and so forth. And I've seen dogs, fed the best of the best diet with, 100 ailments and sicknesses and autoimmune issues. And I've seen dogs fed the worst of the worst diet, live till, a ripe old age and be happy and healthy for the majority of it. So, at the end of the day, I think health of the dog is genetic, and I'm a big believer in kind of feeding the dog whatever kind of works for that dog, regardless of what you might think of the ingredients. All that being said, I mean, that's an impossible question to answer simply because I don't know, like I don't have the stats on like relative lifespan of dogs in Canada versus the US. I don't know that our pollution is actually any better than yours. To be honest with you, having been to the United States many, many times, I can't say that the air quality here is any better or worse than there. Shannon says, "You're welcome, Mr. Has. I haven't needed to ask a question yet, largely because of Shield." Well, good. Are you in? You're in our courses. Pedram says, "Cool. Then please prepare one that goes well with Snap." Well, yeah. I mean, we'll definitely. The great thing about Snap is she's such a go along, right? She'll pretty much get along with just about anybody. She'll get along with just about anybody. So, we can certainly, when the time comes and you're ready, we can hook you up with a male that you will like. Anthony's a funny guy. We want to breed DDR Czech dogs. Wish me luck. Have I considered breeding Chico? Yes, I have. Um, I tried earlier, didn't work out. I might actually be taking him in and getting his semen stored. So we'll see. Nick, when you ask me if correcting the behavior of your dog running away is correct or not, I would say this. If you've trained the dog properly, right? And I don't know that you have or you haven't. If you've trained the dog properly and the dog understands what's being asked, whether it's a heel, a sit, a down, a recall, whatever, and then the dog intentionally ignores what you've asked the dog to do, and you then correct the dog for failure to perform something that the dog understands, I'm going to presuppose that you've properly layered in that method of correction that you're going to use. So, for instance, just because a dog knows what a recall is, if the dog has never been taught the language of an e-collar, I would not put an e-collar on the dog and, correct the dog for not coming. I would never do something like that because the dog doesn't understand what the e-collar is. They don't understand what the e-collar pressure is, and they're not going to react properly to it. So saying, oh, is it appropriate to correct the dog depends on a lot of things, how the dog was trained, the language that the dog understands. I'm not talking about the human language. I'm talking about the pressure language, right? The leash language, the e-collar language, whatever languages that you've taught the dog. All of these things matter. And then when you know what the dog understands and what the dog doesn't understand, then you're able to make an ethical determination as to or when a correction is warranted and when a correction is not warranted, right? It's all based on what does the dog understand. Poland. Have I heard about the Alano Espanol? Yeah, I have. Anthony says, who are the top breeders in the world you trust for a puppy based on the experience and word of mouth from what you have seen? Who? I don't know. I mean, like, there's good breeders, obviously, but there's not one breeder that I'd be like, oh, like everything from him is going to be what I want. I when I purchase a puppy, it's based on a breeding. It's based on, oh, I like this breeding. I like this female. I like this male. I like this combination. I really believe in it. I'm willing to roll the dice on this combination and see what comes out of it. Right? Like that's my determination. Not like, oh, it's this breeder or that breeder. I don't really do that. Somebody's asking, what parameters would I want to know before breeding Chico with any female? Well, first of all, she'd need her health clearances. Second of all, she'd need to be DM clear. And if she met all of those standards and she was a working line German Shepherd, then, you know, she could breed to him. How do I get my dogs to track so well? Take my power tracking course. It is a fantastic course. I go over everything. By the way, I'm just about to drop a video on the Patreon going over some tracking, including how I use the e-collar in tracking. But if you take my power tracking course, I go through step by step how I train my puppies and adult dogs, how I problem solve tracks, all that stuff. Okay, guys, I am going to wrap this one up. Thank you very much for watching, and wish Swampy over there good luck in continuing to deliver her puppies. Do I do live seminars? I do them from time to time. They're not my favorite thing to do, so I try to limit how many I do, but, you know, I do a few. All right, guys. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you very much.